On Mother's Day, my greedy daughter handed me a piece of cake that said, "Last slice before the nursing home." After eating it, I announced that the deed to the Miami apartment would go to Lucy, my caregiver. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my story has reached. I knew something was wrong the moment I walked into my own dining room. The forced smiles, the exchanged glances, the sudden silence. After 58 years on this earth, you develop a sense for these things. "Happy Mother's Day, Mom," Sophia called out, her voice a pitch too high. My daughter stood by the elegantly set table in my Miami apartment, holding a small cake with pink frosting. My son David lingered awkwardly in the corner, avoiding my eyes. "Thank you, sweetheart," I replied, trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. Everyone sang the obligatory, "For she's a jolly good fellow," and I blew out the single candle. That's when I saw it, the inscription on the cake that Sophia had so carefully positioned away from my view until this moment. "Last slice before the nursing home." The room erupted in laughter, everyone except Lucy, my caregiver, whose eyes met mine with quiet horror. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. 5 years a widow, and this is what my life had become, a punchline. "It's just a joke, Mom," Sophia said, rolling her eyes when I didn't join in the laughter. "Lighten up." I forced a smile, my hands trembling slightly as I cut into the cake. "Of course," I murmured. "Very funny." Lucy moved quietly around the table, serving coffee. She'd been with me for 2 years now, initially hired after my hip surgery. I didn't really need full-time help anymore, but her company had become a comfort I couldn't bear to lose. "So, Mom," Sophia continued, her voice casual as she accepted a slice of cake. "David and I were talking. That spare bedroom you use for storage? We should clear it out, make it more functional, in case one of us needs to stay over. In case one of us needs to stay over." The subtext was clear. In case you can't manage on your own anymore. This wasn't the first hint. Over the past few months, Sophia had been dropping by more frequently, her eyes scanning my apartment for signs of decline, asking pointed questions about my medication, commenting on the clutter. "The apartment is fine as it is," I said firmly. "Mom, be reasonable," Sophia sighed. "You're not getting any younger. This place is too big for you now. Too big. The apartment I'd saved for my entire life. The apartment that had been my sanctuary after Richard died. The apartment that Sophia had been eyeing since the day we signed the papers." "Susan," David finally spoke up, using my first name as he'd started doing recently, as if we were colleagues rather than mother and son. "We're just concerned. Remember when you left the stove on last month?" "Once," I said. "I left it on once." "And the time you forgot your doctor's appointment," Sophia added, exchanging a look with David. "I didn't forget," I corrected her. "I chose not to go because I was feeling unwell that day." The conversation continued in this vein, each example of my supposed decline more exaggerated than the last. I sat silently, picking at my cake, my last slice, and watching my children discuss my future as if I weren't in the room. As Lucy cleared the dishes, I caught her gentle gaze. In a house full of people who claimed to love me, she was the only one who seemed to see me. Really see me. After everyone left, I sat alone in my living room, watching the Miami sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. This apartment, with its view of the ocean, had been my dream for decades. Now it was the only thing standing between me and whatever care facility Sophia had already picked out, the cheapest one that wouldn't reflect badly on her, no doubt. I thought about Richard, about how he would have handled this situation. He would have been direct, confrontational even. I had always been the peacemaker. But as I sat there, watching the sky darken over the ocean, something inside me hardened. That cake, that cruel joke, it wasn't just a joke. It was a message. And perhaps it was time I sent one of my own. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I'd kept tucked away for emergencies. "Hello, James. It's Susan Winters. I need to make an appointment with you. It's about my will." The next morning, as I sipped my coffee on the balcony, I felt lighter somehow. They thought I was just a feeble old woman, ready to be packed away. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Mrs. Winters, would you like your tea now?" Lucy's gentle voice pulled me from my thoughts. I'd been staring at old photo albums all morning, tracing the timeline of my relationship with Sophia. "Yes, thank you, Lucy," I replied, accepting the steaming cup. "And please, I've told you 100 times to call me Susan." Lucy smiled warmly. "Old habits, Susan." I flipped to a photograph of Sophia's college graduation. I had been so proud that day, exhausted, but proud. After Richard's sudden heart attack, I'd worked 2 jobs to ensure Sophia could finish her degree at Northwestern without student loans. David had been younger, still in high school. Those were brutal years, leaving one job at 5 p.m. only to work until midnight at another, surviving on 3 hours of sleep. Lucy sat across from me. "That's a beautiful picture. Is that Sophia's graduation?" "Yes," I nodded. I remember being so tired I could barely keep my eyes open during the ceremony. But I was there. Unlike Sophia, who couldn't be bothered to attend my retirement party 5 years ago. "Something came up," she'd said vaguely. I later discovered through Facebook that the something was a spa weekend with friends. I turned the page to find a photo of the beach house we used to rent every summer. That tradition ended after Richard died. I couldn't afford it. Instead, I'd worked overtime to send Sophia to Europe with her school choir. She'd complained about the cheap hostels I could afford. "You were a good mother," Lucy observed quietly. I tried to be. My voice came out more bitter than intended. I'm not sure it made much difference. Lucy didn't push. She never did. That's what I appreciated about her. Unlike my children, she respected my silences. When Richard died, I was 43 with 2 teenagers and a mortgage. I still remember the night I sat at the kitchen table, calculating exactly how much we had left. The insurance money wasn't enough. I took on extra accounting clients, postponed my own dreams, wore the same clothes for years, all to give my children the opportunities they deserved. And they had succeeded. Sophia was a marketing executive, David a software engineer. I was proud of them. But somewhere along the way, something essential had been lost. The first time I noticed the change in Sophia was after I purchased this apartment 3 years ago. I'd finally had enough money saved, and with my retirement benefits, I could just afford it. A modest but beautiful 2-bedroom with an ocean view. When I showed it to Sophia, she didn't congratulate me. Instead, she asked, "Don't you think this is a bit much for just you? What about property taxes?" The questions became more frequent after that. Had I considered the maintenance costs? Was I sure I could manage the cleaning? Wouldn't a retirement community be more practical? Then there were the surprise visits, always with some excuse about being in the neighborhood. She'd open my medicine cabinet, check expiration dates in my refrigerator, ask leading questions about my daily routine. Every visit felt less like a daughter checking on her mother and more like an appraiser evaluating a property. "They'll be here at noon tomorrow," Lucy reminded me, interrupting my thoughts. Tomorrow. The family lunch where I would announce my decision. My stomach tightened at the thought. "Are you sure about this?" Lucy asked, her voice gentle but concerned. "About what exactly? The appointment with my lawyer or inviting them to lunch?" "Both, I suppose," Lucy replied. "It's a big step." I closed the photo album. "Do you know why I hired you, Lucy?" She looked surprised by the question. "After your hip surgery, you needed help with daily tasks." That was the practical reason. I agreed. But I had plenty of options for home care. I chose you because on your first day, you asked me how I liked my tea prepared. Not how my children liked it. Not how it was supposed to be made. How I liked it. Lucy's expression softened. That's just basic respect. Exactly. I set the album aside. After Richard died, I became invisible to most people, especially my children. They saw my role, my function, but not me, not Susan. I stood up and walked to the window, gazing out at the ocean. For years, I've tried to be the mother they needed. I've sacrificed, compromised, excused their behavior. And where has it gotten me? A cake that jokes about putting me in a nursing home, the weight of tomorrow's confrontation pressed on my shoulders. I wasn't naive enough to think it would go smoothly. Sophia would rage. David would try to mediate while secretly agreeing with his sister. They'd question my competence, my judgment, perhaps even my sanity. But I was done compromising. This apartment, this life, was mine. I'd earned it, and I would decide what happened to it. Lucy, would you mind helping me choose what to wear tomorrow? Something dignified but not funeral-like. Lucy nodded, understanding the significance. I think your navy dress with the silver brooch. It brings out your eyes. Perfect, I smiled, feeling a surprising calm settle over me. We should also prepare something special for dessert. Instead of cake? Lucy asked with a knowing smile. Oh, no, I replied, allowing myself a small defiant smile. Definitely cake, but this time, I'll be the one cutting the slices. The law office of James Harrington had the dignified, understated elegance that comes with old money and older traditions. Dark wood, leather chairs, and not a computer in sight. James preferred legal pads and fountain pens. I'd known him since Richard and I purchased our first home 30 years ago. Susan, James smiled, rising as I entered. It's been too long. Not since Richard's will, I agreed, settling into the chair across from him. He nodded, adjusting his reading glasses. What can I do for you today? I took a deep breath. I want to change my will, specifically regarding my Miami apartment. James raised an eyebrow but said nothing, waiting for me to continue. I want to leave it to Lucy Martinez, my caregiver. Now both eyebrows shot up. Not Sophia and David? No, I said firmly. Not Sophia and David. James leaned back, studying me with the careful scrutiny of someone who had seen many family disputes play out after a death. May I ask why? I told him about the Mother's Day cake, about the jokes that weren't really jokes, about Sophia's thinly veiled interest in my property, about the nursing home brochures I'd found in her purse when she left it unattended last week. Brochures for facilities that were understaffed and uninspiring, but most importantly, cheap. I see, James said when I finished. And Lucy? Tell me about her. She came to help after my hip surgery 2 years ago. She was supposed to stay for 6 weeks. But I searched for the right words. We connected. She sees me as a person, not just an old woman or a burden or an asset to be managed. She respects my independence while helping me maintain it. James nodded, making notes. And you're certain about this decision? Absolutely. You know they'll contest it, he warned, especially if you make this change so close to. He trailed off diplomatically. So close to dying? I finished for him, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. I'm 58, James, not 98. My doctor says I'm in excellent health. James held up his hands in surrender. Of course, but I need to make sure you understand the potential complications. I understand, I assured him. That's why I came to you. An hour later, with the paperwork complete, I felt a strange mix of relief and apprehension as I left his office. The decision was made, but now I had to face Sophia and David. When I arrived home, Lucy was preparing dinner, her movements efficient in the kitchen that had become as familiar to her as her own. How did it go? She asked, setting down the knife she'd been using to chop vegetables. It's done, I said simply, hanging up my coat. Lucy wiped her hands on a dish towel and approached me, concern etched on her face. Mrs. Winters, Susan, I don't want to come between you and your children. I sighed, suddenly feeling very tired. You're not the one coming between us, Lucy. Still, she persisted. Are you sure about this? It's a significant decision. Her reaction didn't surprise me. Since I'd told her my plan the previous evening, she'd been trying to talk me out of it. Not because she didn't want the apartment, though I suspected the idea made her uncomfortable, but because she genuinely cared about my relationship with my children. Lucy, I said gently, you've been more family to me in 2 years than they have in 10. You earned this. She looked like she wanted to say more but stopped herself, returning to her cooking. When will you tell them? Tomorrow at lunch. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying scenarios in my head, imagining Sophia's outrage, David's quiet disappointment. Would they cry? Threaten? Beg? Or would they finally see me, really see me, for the first time in years? By morning, my resolve had hardened. I dressed carefully in the navy dress Lucy had suggested, applied subtle makeup, and styled my hair. Looking in the mirror, I didn't see a feeble old woman ready for a nursing home. I saw someone strong, someone with dignity, someone who deserved respect. Lucy prepared a beautiful lunch. Roast chicken, my favorite, with seasonal vegetables and fresh bread. For dessert, a simple lemon cake, undecorated but elegant. At precisely noon, the doorbell rang. I squared my shoulders, taking a deep breath. Ready? Lucy asked softly. I nodded. As I'll ever be. Sophia arrived first, dressed in an expensive suit that spoke of business meetings rather than family lunch. She kissed my cheek perfunctorily, her eyes already scanning the apartment as if cataloging its contents. David followed minutes later, more casual but equally detached, offering a quick hug before immediately checking his phone. Lunch is ready, Lucy announced, and we moved to the dining table. The conversation was stilted, full of polite inquiries that neither of my children actually cared to have answered. How was I feeling? Had I seen the doctor recently? Was I keeping up with my medications? I answered each question calmly, biding my time, waiting for the right moment. Finally, as Lucy served the cake, I set down my fork and looked at my children. I have something to tell you both, I began, my voice stronger than I expected. I've made a decision about the apartment. A decision about the apartment? Sophia's fork paused halfway to her mouth. What do you mean? I took a small bite of lemon cake, savoring its tartness before answering. I've updated my will. David and Sophia exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. David set down his fork, his expression carefully neutral. That's good, Mom. It's important to keep those things current. Sophia nodded, a tight smile stretching her lips. Absolutely. We were actually going to suggest that. Of course they were. I imagined they'd already calculated how quickly they could sell the place after I was gone, or declared incompetent. I'm glad you approve, I said mildly, taking another bite of cake. I've decided to leave the apartment to Lucy. The silence that followed was absolute. Lucy, who had been quietly serving coffee, froze, her eyes wide. You've what? Sophia's voice was dangerously quiet. Left the apartment to Lucy, I repeated, my voice steady despite my racing heart. The paperwork has already been filed. Sophia's face contorted, her carefully manicured facade cracking to reveal the rage beneath. This is ridiculous. You can't just— I can, I interrupted. The apartment is mine and I can leave it to whomever I choose. She's manipulated you. Sophia stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is elder abuse. She's after your money. Lucy took a step back, her hands trembling slightly. I never asked for— Shut up, Sophia snapped at her. You've been planning this from the beginning, haven't you? worming your way in, playing the devoted caretaker. That's enough, Sophia, I said firmly, also rising to my feet. Lucy has nothing to do with my decision. This is about you and David, and how you've treated me. How we've treated you? Sophia's laugh was brittle. We're your children. Everything we've done has been for your own good. Like the nursing home brochures in your purse? I asked quietly. The ones you accidentally left behind last week? Sophia paled slightly, caught off guard. Those were just options for the future. Pine Meadows Care Center, Sunshine Valley, Golden Years Facility. I named the places I'd seen. All conveniently located over an hour away, all with the most basic care options, all remarkably affordable. David shifted uncomfortably. Mom, we were just researching. Don't lie to me, I said, my voice sharper than I'd intended. Not anymore. Sophia recovered quickly, her eyes narrowing. Fine. Yes, we were looking at options. Someone has to, since you refuse to acknowledge reality. Which reality is that? I asked, genuinely curious about what story she'd been telling. Herself. That you can't live alone anymore, Sophia exploded. You're forgetful. You're slow. You need help with basic tasks. I had hip surgery, I reminded her. It's healed. I'm fine. You left the stove on, David chimed in, his voice softer but equally insistent. Once, I replied. Everyone makes mistakes. You forgot your granddaughter's birthday, Sophia added. I stared at her incredulously. You changed the date of her party without telling me and then blamed me for not showing up. Sophia waved dismissively, as if my facts were irrelevant to her narrative. The point is, you need supervision. And that apartment, she gestured around, us, is too much for you. The maintenance, the cleaning, the stairs. There's an elevator, I pointed out dryly. Mom. David finally stood, adopting his reasonable, peacemaking tone. We're just worried about you. And frankly, this decision makes us even more concerned about your judgment. There it was. The first hint at questioning my competence. I'd expected it, but it still stung. My judgment is perfectly sound, I replied, coldly. Which is why I've recognized that Lucy is the only person who genuinely cares about my well-being. Lucy, who had been standing frozen by the sideboard, finally spoke up. Mrs. Winters, please. I don't want to cause problems in your family. You're not family, Sophia spat. You're hired help. Lucy flinched as if slapped. I stepped between them, my anger building. Lucy has shown me more respect and kindness in 2 years than either of you have in 10. She sees me as a person, not a burden or an inconvenience or a piece of real estate to be managed. Sophia's face flushed. How dare you? After everything we've done. What exactly have you done, Sophia? I asked, my voice dropping. When was the last time you visited without checking my medicine cabinet or questioning my competence? When was the last time you called just to talk, not to interrogate me about my health or my finances? David held up his hands placatingly. Mom, this isn't productive. You're upset. We understand. But making impulsive decisions? This wasn't impulsive, I interrupted. I've been watching how you both treat me for years. The Mother's Day cake was just the final straw. Sophia rolled her eyes. It was a joke, Mom. God, you're so sensitive. It wasn't funny, I said simply. It was cruel. And it showed me exactly what you think of me. That I'm just a problem to be dealt with, a resource to be managed. For a moment, something like shame flickered across Sophia's face, quickly replaced by indignation. This is insane. You're giving away a $500,000 apartment to your maid because of a joke? Caregiver, I corrected. And no, not because of a joke. Because Lucy has earned it through genuine care and respect, something neither of you seem capable of. Sophia grabbed her purse, her movements jerky with rage. You'll regret this. We'll contest the will. We'll have you evaluated for competency. I met her gaze steadily. You can try. She stormed toward the door, pausing only to hiss. This isn't over. David hesitated, caught between following his sister and staying to mediate. Mom, please reconsider. We just want what's best for you. No, I said quietly. You want what's best for you. There's a difference. After a moment of tense silence, he too left, the door closing behind him with a definitive click. I sank back into my chair, suddenly exhausted. The apartment felt too quiet, the air heavy with unspoken words. Lucy approached cautiously. Susan, I never wanted— I know, I said, reaching for her hand. But I meant what I said. You earned this. As we sat in silence, I wondered what would come next. Sophia wouldn't give up easily. The battle had only just begun. The first email arrived at 7:30 the next morning, a message from Sophia with the subject line, "Family meeting, urgent." The body was terse. Mom, we need to talk. David's place, 2 p.m. This is serious. I deleted it without responding. By noon, there were 6 missed calls, 3 from Sophia, 2 from David, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail. They're not going to give up, Lucy observed, setting a cup of tea beside me as I sat on the balcony, watching the waves roll in. No, I agreed. They're not. What will you do? She asked, settling into the chair opposite. Mine, I took a sip of tea, considering. Listen to the voicemails, for a start. Sophia's messages grew progressively more heated. Mom, call me back. This isn't a joke. You need to reconsider what you're doing. We're your children. If you don't call me back, we'll come to you. David's were more measured but equally insistent. Mom, please call. We're worried about you. We should discuss this as a family. Please be reasonable. The final voicemail was from a woman who identified herself as Dr. Helen Morris, a geriatric specialist who worked with families during difficult transitions. A doctor Sophia and David had already contacted without my knowledge or consent. Set my phone down, a cold fury building inside me. They've called in a specialist to evaluate me. Lucy's eyes widened. They can't do that without your permission. Apparently, they're going to try. At precisely 3:15 p.m., the doorbell rang. I'd been expecting them. Sophia was nothing if not predictable in her persistence. Do you want me to leave? Lucy asked. Clearly uncomfortable. No, I said firmly. This concerns you too. When I opened the door, I found not just Sophia and David, but a third person. A woman in her 50s with a professional demeanor and sympathetic eyes that immediately set my teeth on edge. Mom, Sophia began without preamble. This is Dr. Morris. She's here to help. Help with what, exactly? I asked, not moving from the doorway. Mrs. Winters. Dr. Morris extended her hand, which I pointedly did not take. Your children are concerned about some recent decisions you've made. I'm here to facilitate a conversation. I didn't request facilitation, I replied coldly, and I certainly didn't agree to an evaluation. Mom, please, David stepped forward, his voice gentle in that infuriating way people use when speaking to someone they believe is unstable. We're worried about you. This decision about the apartment isn't like you. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. You have no idea what's like me, David. Neither of you do. May we come in? Dr. Morris asked, her professional smile unwavering. It would be better to discuss this privately. I hesitated, then stepped aside. Better to have this confrontation in my home, on my terms, than to have them return with more drastic measures. The 3 of them entered, Sophia's gaze immediately falling on Lucy, who stood quietly near the kitchen. She should leave, Sophia said flatly. She stays, I countered. Now, let's get to the point. You've brought a doctor to evaluate me because you think I'm incompetent. Dr. Morris winced slightly at my bluntness. Mrs. Winters, no one is saying, "You're incompetent. Your children are simply concerned about losing their inheritance," I finished for her. "Let's be honest at least." "That's unfair," David protested weakly. "This isn't about money, isn't it?" I raised an eyebrow. "Tell me, what specifically about my behavior suggests I need evaluation? The fact that I can manage my own finances, that I make my own decisions, or just that those decisions don't benefit you?" Sophia stepped forward, her patience visibly fraying. "You're giving away a $500,000 apartment to your housekeeper, Mom. If that's not concerning behavior, I don't know what is." Lucy flinched at the deliberate demotion from caregiver to housekeeper. I felt my anger rising on her behalf. "Mrs. Winters?" Dr. Morris intervened smoothly. "Changes in financial decision-making can sometimes indicate—" "I know exactly what you think they indicate," I interrupted. "But you're starting from a false premise. This isn't a change in behavior. This is the first time in decades I've prioritized my own judgment over my children's demands." Dr. Morris made a note on her pad, which only fueled my indignation. "And what exactly do you mean by demands?" she asked. Before I could answer, Sophia cut in. "This is ridiculous. She's clearly being manipulated by that woman." She pointed accusingly at Lucy, who had remained silent throughout the exchange. "Lucy has never asked me for anything," I said firmly. "Unlike some people in this room." David sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Mom, we just want what's best for you." "No," I countered. "You want what's easiest for you. A mother who doesn't inconvenience you by aging, who hands over her assets without question, who goes quietly into a home when you decide she's too much trouble. That's not fair." Sophia's voice rose. "We've always taken care of you." I stared at her, momentarily stunned by the audacity of the claim. "Taken care of me? When? Was it when you missed my retirement party for a spa weekend? When you forgot to invite me to Christmas dinner last year? Or perhaps when you gave me a cake joking about putting me in a nursing home?" Dr. Morris looked up sharply at this. "A cake?" David had the grace to look embarrassed. Sophia merely rolled her eyes. "It was a joke," she insisted. "Mom's being dramatic." "I joke about putting me away," I clarified, my voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. Like I'm a problem to be solved rather than a person to be respected. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Dr. Morris closed her notebook and stood. "I think I've seen enough for today." Sophia frowned. "But you haven't—" "Mrs. Winters," Dr. Morris interrupted, addressing me directly. "Would you be willing to come to my office next week for a formal evaluation? Not because I think you're incompetent," she added quickly, "but to establish a baseline and perhaps facilitate better communication between you and your children." I considered for a moment, then nodded. "I'll consider it." After they left, Lucy and I sat in silence, the tension slowly ebbing from the apartment. "They'll be back," Lucy said quietly. "Yes," I agreed, feeling strangely calm despite everything. "But next time, I'll be ready." The week that followed was a battlefield of legal maneuvers and emotional warfare. Sophia bombarded me with texts alternating between guilt trips and thinly veiled threats. David sent carefully worded emails about family unity and making sure I was taken care of. I saved every message without responding. My appointment with Dr. Morris was scheduled for Tuesday morning. Despite my initial resistance, I decided to go, not because I doubted my own competence, but because I wanted an objective record of it. "Are you sure you want to go alone?" Lucy asked as I prepared to leave. "I could come with you." I shook my head. "I need to do this myself." The evaluation was thorough. Cognitive tests, memory assessments, questions about my daily life and decision-making. Dr. Morris was professional, neither condescending nor overly sympathetic. I appreciated that. "Mrs. Winters," she said when we finished, "I want to be clear about something. I was initially contacted by your daughter, who expressed concerns about cognitive decline. But what I'm seeing today doesn't support those concerns. I nodded, unsurprised but relieved to have it confirmed. May I ask why you decided to change your will? She continued, her tone careful. Because I realized my children don't see me as a person, I replied simply. They see me as an asset, a burden, or a problem to be managed. Lucy sees me. Really, sees me. Dr. Morris considered this. And you understand that this decision might permanently damage your relationship with your children? The damage was already done, I said quietly. They did that, not me. 3 days later, James called with news. Sophia has filed for conservatorship, he informed me, his voice grim. She's claiming you're being unduly influenced and are unable to make sound financial decisions. My hand tightened around the phone. On what grounds? The usual, memory issues, poor judgment, vulnerability, to manipulation. But Susan, his voice softened. We have Dr. Morris's evaluation. She's confirmed you're fully competent. Relief washed over me. So, it won't work. It shouldn't, James agreed cautiously. But these cases can get ugly. Are you prepared for that? Was I ready to face my children in court, to have my private life and mental faculties scrutinized, to be portrayed as a confused old woman being manipulated by her caregiver? Yes, I said firmly. I'm prepared. The hearing was set for the following Monday. I spent the weekend in a strange state of calm, as if watching events unfold from a distance. Lucy hovered anxiously, clearly feeling responsible for the rift despite my assurances. On Sunday evening, there was an unexpected knock at my door. When I answered, I found David standing alone, his expression troubled. May I come in? He asked, quietly. I hesitated, then stepped aside. He entered but didn't sit, instead pacing the living room like he used to as a teenager when he had something difficult to confess. I found something, he finally said, pulling a folder from his bag. Sophia's notes for the hearing tomorrow. I took the folder, scanning the contents with growing disbelief. There were detailed plans for placing me in a nursing home, not just any home, but Sunshine Valley, the cheapest facility on the brochures I'd found. There were calculations of how quickly they could sell the apartment, how the money would be divided, even a note about selling my jewelry, pieces I'd intended to leave to Sophia herself. Did you know about this? I asked, my voice barely above. A whisper. David looked away, shame evident in his posture. Not all of it. I knew she wanted to contest the will, but this. He gestured at the folder. No, I didn't know she'd gone this far. I sat down, suddenly feeling every one of my 58 years. Why are you showing me this? David was quiet for a long moment. Because it's wrong, he finally said. What she's doing, what we've been doing, it's wrong. The admission hung in the air between us, fragile but significant. I keep thinking about Dad, he continued, his voice rough with emotion. About what he would say if he could see how we've treated you. The mention of Richard made my throat tighten. He would be disappointed, I said softly. David nodded, eyes downcast. I'm withdrawing from the conservatorship petition. I told Sophia this morning. How did she take it? A humorless smile crossed his face. Not well. We lapsed into silence, the weight of years of misunderstandings and missed connections pressing down on us. I don't expect you to forgive me, David finally said. But I wanted you to know that I see it now, what we've been doing to you, and I'm sorry. I studied my son, seeing beneath the surface for the first time in years. Thank you for telling me. The next morning, James called again. Sophia has withdrawn the petition, he announced, surprise evident in his voice. It seems your son contacted her lawyer with some information that changed the situation. Relief flooded through me, followed quickly by uncertainty. What now? Where did we go from here? The answer came in the form of another unexpected visitor, Dr. Morris, arriving with a proposal that took me by surprise. "What if," she suggested over tea in my living room, "you didn't give the apartment to Lucy or to your children? What if you used it differently?" I listened as she outlined a plan, one that would allow me to maintain my independence while still creating a legacy. Not the one Sophia and David had expected, but perhaps one that would heal rather than divide. 2 months later, I stood in my apartment, watching as a family with 2 young children explored the space that had been my home. They were the first recipients of the Winters Family Housing Scholarship, a program I'd established through the local community college for students who were also parents, providing them with affordable housing while they completed their education. The apartment would remain in my name during my lifetime, but a trust had been established to maintain the scholarship program after I was gone. I would live in the smaller condo I'd purchased nearby, still independent, still with an ocean view, but leaving a legacy that honored Richard's memory and our shared values. Lucy had declined my initial offer, just as I'd suspected she would. Instead, she'd accepted a different one, becoming the part-time coordinator for the scholarship program while continuing her education in social work. David had slowly, tentatively begun rebuilding our relationship. Small steps, weekly calls, occasional dinners, honest conversations about the past and future. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. Progress. Sophia remained distant, her pride still wounded. But last week, a card had arrived, no message, just her signature. A small acknowledgement, the tiniest olive branch. As I watched the young family move about the apartment, the father a nursing student, the mother studying business administration, their children wide-eyed at the view of the ocean, I felt something settle inside me. Not the ending I had expected, but perhaps a better one. "Are you sure about this?" Lucy asked softly, standing beside me. I nodded, smiling as one of the children pressed her hands against the glass doors to the balcony in wonder. "Yes," I said. "This feels right." The apartment had never been about the property itself, but about what it represented. My independence, my choices, my dignity. I hadn't surrendered any of those things. Instead, I'd found a way to honor them while creating something new, something neither Sophia nor David could diminish or control. That night, alone in my new home, I sliced myself a piece of chocolate. Cake, my favorite kind. The one no one had bothered to remember I preferred. As I savored each bite, I thought about choices and consequences, about standing your ground even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. The last slice didn't signify an ending or a surrender. It marked a beginning, my life, my terms, my dignity intact.